Hello, I'm AkiXToyCat, and this is a weird one because the Minecraft Twitter made this simple post asking how people would shape their worlds in 1.21, and with it they posted some very nice examples of working tuff and copper into some new builds, but actually this doesn't match the link they posted at all, because instead that was showing off a copper grate mushroom, a copper bowl nether portal, and a tough brick villager church. These are all examples of replacing an existing structure with new blocks, or in other words, exactly what I do in my Shouldn't Build series, and I love that Mojang have embraced this, and so despite having decided not to make an episode of it for 1.21, I would have to show you some examples that I've been saving anyway, because this, and why this are things that I've wanted to do the entire time, and now it looks like we have a good excuse to do so, a mini episode of Shouldn't Build. But first I think we should go into exactly why Mojang made this, because I was expecting an article from Minecraft's past that would probably just tell us how great the new blocks are and how you can use them to make a great new castle, but what we got instead was a copper-laden bastion. So here's the logic behind it. Christian Andika, who is one of the senior creative writers at Mojang, decided to talk about the new blocks, but to do so in a unique way, and they said that because they're not a builder, instead of creating their own structures, they would reimagine existing ones, because after all art is derivative, and do we not all stand on the shoulders of giants? I could not agree more. So there's 7 separate builds here, and each of them is made to be derivative of an existing Minecraft build, and they actually all have their own fun titles. So this is a gate crown, this is metallic mycelium, lights up, this is never to the never, a passage denied, I really like this one. There's also iron golem, copper grates, a tough fate, a ruin unruined, and then a dwelling to dwell on, and finally piglin to player, bridging the gap. And so the entire purpose of this was basically to promote the fact that there are new blocks in the game, because here are some things you can do with them, because that's the purpose of Minecraft.net more broadly, is to tell you about new things going on, whether that's Minecraft coming out for the PlayStation 5, or Dynamic Worlds, or even the Tricky Trials update. Because honestly, I am the sort of person who has way more building ideas than I ever have the actual time to complete. I love mega projects, in theory, I come up with so many of them, and especially when a new block or structure comes out, I'm just filled with potential. However, I realize that in survival, many of these are going to be impossible, and so there's 2 options. One is to let the ideas die, and the second is to say we shouldn't do these in survival, but if we were going to, this is what it would look like. And so whenever I see a new block, I can't help but think this, and one example would be the copper bulb, which by the way, I'd like to use now as a time to admit that I didn't add this to my all block collection, so let's just add it now and pretend we had it the whole time. Ooh, I like those noises, by the way. But imagine that you didn't just get to listen to that 4 times, as I definitely needed to hear to balance out my copper versus my tough, but imagine you got to listen to that thousands of times, just how beautiful the end result could be. Well, we will prevent the imagination today and show you some actual footage of what it would look like. Because if we did that, we'd be able to imagine walking around a plains and hearing this lovely sound. It's just so clanky and steampunk feeling, but also you'd be able to imagine putting a bunch of pressure plates on and what that would do to the light sources, which actually I have no idea what to expect. Oh. This is very boring, actually. You know, I don't want to imagine the pressure plates on here. I figured that maybe it would be more interesting at night, but the truth is there's just so much light here that it's making no difference. And you can't see it from above, so what is the point? You know what? It's silly. Okay, I figured sculk sensors might be way more fun instead, but as it turns out, they only light the block underneath them, so maybe you replace the occasional one with sculk blocks, and then we can use that to do weird things. You know, this is all nonsensical. This is the worst idea ever. Copper bulbs are not a very good surface to cover an area with if you want light from them, or at least if you want sporadic light. Just use redstone lamps. You've got to admit it looks so cool from a distance though. It looks like the plains biome is literally on fire, which I love. By the way, there's another thing that I really love that I genuinely want to do. I did it with a stronghold, but I know that doing it for a trial chamber would be far too hard, because imagine if a trial chamber didn't have to exist all the way underground, but instead you could easily access it. Well, that would be hundreds of thousands of blocks of excavation in survival, but if you go into creative with some janky commands, do you know what you can do? Well, actually, you can make an absolute mess. Pro tip, don't pick an underwater trial chamber for this one. But if you find a nice regular trial chamber that isn't covered in water, let me show you how you can excavate it in seconds rather than days. Okay, same point in the same trial chambers, but there's no water above me. Now, let me show you what we need to do. So we're going to find the top of the trial chambers, which is almost always going to be one of these rooms, pro tip. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a giant fill air area. Basically, we're going to take the equivalent of an entire entire hour worth of mining, and we're going to be able to do it in just a few seconds by telling the game to fill, say, a 30 by 30 by 5, and then minus 30 by minus 30 by 5. We're going to tell it to fill a giant area with just air instead of anything else. We know we want to clear a hole straight to the surface, and so we can mine 22,299 blocks in an instant. And then we can do the same thing again, and again, and again, and again. And we can do this over and over until eventually we reach that surface, which we're obviously aiming for. A lot of zombies on it, apparently. And we're just going to keep on going until we've got this lovely little box out. Then we need to check what this actually looks like when compared to the rest of the trial chambers. I imagine you couldn't fit a trial chamber in a box this small, so we might actually need to make it bigger. And then once we've found the actual footprint, you can see that we've got too many blocks in the specified area, so we just have to go ahead and make this command slightly smaller, and then it tells me I can't place blocks outside of the world. This is fixed by changing your simulation distance. And now we just have to follow that exact same process, but this time doing it slightly slower, but eventually that gives us our rough footprint of the trial chambers, which we can now properly excavate. So again, we're talking about having mined hundreds of thousands of blocks in a few seconds here, but now we've got to be a little bit more surgical than just saying remove those blocks. And the way we do that is we dig down a bunch and we tell the game that, yeah, I want to only replace the stone here, and so we set it to air replace stone. This means that all the stone goes away. Admittedly, that doesn't get blocks like gravel or dirt, but it gets the bulk of them, also ores. So much copper, apparently. You know, it seems so unnecessary to have this much copper this close to a trial chamber. But yeah, we can keep on going down and keep on doing the same thing. In fact, we can just do this at the negative coordinate instead, so it just digs ourselves down as we go. And eventually, we'll have gone so far that we'll have dug every single stone block that exists. And then we'll need to switch to deep slate. But that's a problem for future me. Soon after... Oh no, it's future me time to deal with the deep slate now, which we do in very much the same way, all the way down. We've somehow ended up with a situation where literally a water stream this wide has caused this much water to flood in. Hopefully we deal with that and all our problems go away. The same thing is true here. Like, it is crazy how much water can go from a single spot if you just let it. There's something about viruses and diseases that I could teach you from this, but instead I'd rather say, it's just like how YouTubers say, hey guys, hey guys, hey guys, how's it going? Subscribe to the video, smash that like button, all those weird phrases. Statistically they work, and so it encourages other YouTubers to say them, and then they start saying them, and they start saying them, and then before you know it, everyone thinks they're your guy, but they can't all be your guy, because if everyone's your guy... Anyway, we continue this all the way down and deal with the water, and so after doing the same for basically every block that I could easily find, I've now removed the bulk of the clutter, and now you can see the trial chamber, but from above, which is cool enough by itself, but this is kind of just like viewing it in spectator mode, but you know, I think we can do one better than spectator mode by replacing the tops of the trial chambers, and now I have my Minecraft dream that would have taken me weeks, but here it is. I've got a Minecraft trial chambers, but I've excavated it, and then I've replaced the ceiling with glass. Realistically, I might just destroy the ceiling altogether, but I like the glass idea, so I can look in there and be like, this is that room, and what's over here? Oh, those are some trial spawners. I'll fly in and I'll fight those, and then later I could go out and do other stuff. It would be so satisfying to just have holes in the ceiling like this, and it would make the entire place just a lot less intimidating. It's like the ancient city. It's one of the scariest places in the game, but once you realize that if you have mobility, it's so much easier, I feel like the same thing would happen here. You would just go through a period of making everything so much better for yourself, which would be nice, right? My next idea is simple, but it's one that I really wanted to refine, especially after seeing it on the Minecraft.net article. What if you could take a village and trial chamberize it? Not just, you know, make it into a few tough bricks, but what if you used both accents from the trial chambers and made a trial village? Well, that seems easy enough to do, right? Just replace the cobblestone with tough and the mossy cobblestone with chiseled tough. You know, that didn't work as well as I thought it would. Honestly, why is there even mossy cobblestone in the village to begin with? Okay, that looks a little bit better, right? Just a little bit of accenting to be done there. Now we replace the oak logs with some of this lovely copper. And then at that point, all we need to deal with is the stairs, which sadly can't be replaced because of the weird orientation. It takes a lot longer to do it that way, at least. Oh. That is odd. Pretend we didn't see that. So we just have to replace the stairs and, of course, the doors. And once we do both of these things, we get to see what a Plains village would look like if the villagers were feeling tricky. And honestly, I wouldn't blame them if they were. I actually really like the way this has come across. And honestly, this would be a fun little village variant, don't you think? You know, this is the problem with making something, is no matter how silly it is when you go into it, if it's a decent color scheme, eventually you come out of it saying, actually, yeah, it looks like something that already exists, but better. and with some random wood blocks. And you know what? That problem with random wood blocks is exactly what's going to happen here, because I had a fun idea of what if you could make a crafter tree. It's a really, really silly idea, but copper grates would be so great at acting as the leaves if you just did it correctly. I mean, as we even saw, it's one of the first ideas that everyone comes to, but what if you could take this not just on a small scale, like my very sad tree here, but on a much larger scale, like one of the most beautiful biomes in the game? Well, I think it might be very odd with some random wood blocks, but I'm hoping that it's actually a beauty, so let's replace all of the leaves with copper grates. Oh, you know what? It actually does work, right? It's got a little bit of a steampunky forest vibe, which makes no sense to me, but I really, really do like this, and I think you don't even need to replace the logs with crafters. I feel like they actually work better as regular logs, and if I'm being honest, the crafter does have this slight vibe of wood to it, if you look at it from one side, but I think it actually works much better from underneath. I think this is a beautiful texture, and the same is true up top here, and the fun thing about it is depending on which way you place them, you can actually deliberately try to tile this backwards and forwards to make this lovely square right here. You can also tile copper bulbs in the same way. They have 4 corners, which are kind of like stairs, so if you place 4 of these in a row and you focus on this middle corner right here, then you can show that as being the main primary center by just placing some stairs all the way around it, like we're gonna do right here. Apparently the way we're gonna do terribly right here, but as you can see, by just doing that, now we have a copper bulb that's actually 4 segments, and we can light up individual parts of it if we want to deliberately have a kind of half on, half off light. Isn't that nice? I think the answer is yes. If you don't think the answer is yes, then I don't agree with you. But yeah, if you want to, you can light it up like the 3 rings of death or whatever. But yeah, that's an actual real building technique. Today, I'm not here to show you those. I'm here to show you silly things you can do. And so where should the craft be used instead? Oh, you know, I don't hate this as much as I thought I would. I honestly think this is a great solution. Instead of having a red carpet in here, just show the tops of some crafters. You'll confuse a lot of players coming in, but let's be honest, the Illagers already do. What's going on? Do they have their own religion? Why do they have totems of undying on them? Why do they not use them? If they have these very valuable artifacts, why is it that when you kill an evoker, it doesn't just immediately pop one and manage to mess you up? Why am I Steve instead of an ocelot, even though that's clearly my skin? These are questions we don't know the answers to, but yeah, this replacement has gone very strangely for me, and so instead I want to go to something a little bit less simple, and show you my grandest plan that I would totally make, because I had this idea, right? Imagine if you could take a structure like the trial chambers and destroy the entire thing. Oh, actually, that's one I'm really attempting in survival because I'm stupid. But one that I really, really want to do once I do destroy it is to take those blocks that could make a trial chamber and then use them to do, you know, it's better I just show you this. So to be easily able to copy and paste something isn't something you can just do with the fill command like I've been doing for the rest of this video, and so instead I have a structure block, and I'm using that structure block to save this area, which is more or less one giant trial chamber, plus the glass that I installed, and apparently also plus the slime that's bouncing around on there right now. Isn't that kind of fun to watch in this view? Anyway, I'm going to copy paste this, and now I can place it anywhere, which means that we can have a trial chamber experience with that spicy, warm ambience that comes with the nicest of places, weather-wise. At least according to people who like the sun too much. Seriously, there are people who go specifically to places where it's hot on holiday, and I want you to know that Steve judges you for that, but Steve also thinks it'd be a very good idea if we didn't just have this for the Nether, but maybe also out here in the end. You can really see the color differences when you look at the trial chambers. It's the exact same structure, but in so many different places, it just feels so oddly different. It's something which you don't really appreciate because for the most part, you just think of the trial chambers as existing, but it really does exist in a very specific overworld dimension spot. And so now I think there's just one last build that I have left if I'm going to match Mojang themselves, and honestly my first thought is what I want more than anything else is to have a bunch of copper trapdoors. So just fill a nice simple area, like make it 20 by 20 with copper trapdoors, maybe oxidized ones just to be fancy, but I would love to do also, why they spell oxidized the funky way. We know that there's only one set of people who make the language, and for some reason we don't trust them when it comes to spelling it, but this is the oxidized copper trapdoor, waxed oxidized copper trapdoor, one of my favorite words, and just imagine jumping around on this with wind charges and deliver. Oh, I guess you have to like, you know, my whole idea is ruined. You can't actually do this. You have to crouch if you want to use a wind charge on these, and even then it doesn't work. You can't use a wind charge while facing a trapdoor. Huh. Oh, my entire idea is ruined. I just wanted to have fun doing this over and over again, to be totally honest. And I guess I can kind of do this, but I wanted to jump up and down while doing it. So yeah, if I need a 7th idea that is a real one and isn't just a bunch of trapdoors in the end, well, I guess while we're here anyway, we could go to the Outer End Islands. And I guess we could take the most famous structure and maybe we could make something that is just overwhelmingly, exceedingly, ridiculously ugly, but technically copper and tough themed. And so this is my entrance to the weird things you shouldn't make in 1.21. It looks like a cactus. Is anyone else seeing that right now? It looks like a cactus with 2 arms waving out and some houses on it. I am loving this personally. I think that if Mojang needs a structure designer for 1.21, they should hire me. More seriously, I do think that fun texture palette reswaps are something that do actually add a little bit of variety, but the structures in Minecraft are one of my favorite things, which is why I enjoy doing this so much. But yeah, before I go, there's one more thing I need to say. And no, it's not going to be anything generic about subscribing or liking the video, but instead it's going to be the fact that if there's anything you learn from this article or this video or from this entire website or internet as a whole, I think it should be the fact that Minecraft is a game built on creativity, and so many YouTubers emphasize this idea that they're the best at it and they have the biggest and the most important build that they had to build in creative many times before they could even trust themselves to do it in survival, but it doesn't need to be that way. Your survival builds don't need to be mega and epic and beyond anything you've ever seen. If you enjoy doing something and if you try something new, you will enjoy it, and sometimes that will result in failures, but ultimately you can never really succeed if you could never really fail. And so if you try something new, I'm sure it will go well for you in Minecraft and otherwise, or maybe it won't, but just don't sue me if it goes poorly, because I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!